Okay, here we go. So these are some climbs at the head of the Parvati Valley, 1996. I was sort of fooled into joining this or co-leading this Indo-American trip. There were 6 Indians, 6 Americans. The Americans were from the mountaineers in Seattle. 6 of us were basically from the Himalayan Club in Mumbai. And we were not looking for anything big and impressive to climb, but an area where we could split up into multiple climbing teams and do multiple climbs, all short day climbs from advanced base or a higher camp. And in that sense, we did achieve that. We had a lot of fun, but it was the largest trip that I've been on. We had almost 50 porters. I've never handled so many porters in my life. So somebody designed this logo and they said, because a delusion is a terrible thing to waste, and I truly agree. That is base camp at Mantalai at the head of the Parvati Valley. Mantalai is the same place you go to cross the Pin Parvati Pass into Spiti. So a lot of you are familiar with that. And we gave the dog also a t-shirt. So, we are very inclusive out here. So my co-leader was Mr. Steve Cox on the extreme right in this picture. He's just been hauled out of quicksand just ahead of base camp. On the left is my old friend Chaman Singh from Raskat village. And in between is the liaison officer. We didn't really need him because, we did all of the bandobast, but the government says, foreigners, you have to have a liaison. This is at Pulga at the old historic rest house. And that's one of the members, Howard Weaver, ticking off all the porter loads. And if you've been in this valley, you'll know what a very pretty valley this is. So we finally, beyond Mantalai, we went further. This is the 4th tributary glacier which feeds into the Parvati system. And that's base camp. So these were all our activities. It was a 7-kilometer slog up to establish ABC here. And then from here, we did these, South Parvati was attempted. We climbed Rich Peak, Hidden Peak, Twin Peak. We did some climbing here. And there's another peak, 2 peaks out of the picture there. That's base camp. So again, small peaks, but fairly decent climbing, days climbing. Summit had a big cornice, so nobody dare take the flag up there. Again, technically not difficult, very pleasant climbs. We made sure the Indian flag was bigger than the American flag. Now, the real good peak here, for those of you who are into technical climbing, is South Parvati. In fact, Ravi Kamath, whom I mentioned earlier, the show, he has attempted it with a couple of friends. They took a fall of this face somewhere here. The original route goes up this couloir, up these slabs, up here, and then first climbed by Rob Collister in 1973. And some other British teams have attempted the direct routes on the face, but no success. From this little peak, you have an extremely good view of Pin Parvati Pass is somewhere here. I'm not sure whether it's here or here, but basically it's that. This is this glacier going down into the main glacier down there, and it flows to the right. So So when you see these peaks, altitude-wise, hardly anything. 5360 meters means it's even lower than Everest base camp, right? But it can still give you a good climb. We did go up and pitch a camp here, and Ajay and Karen, one of the girls from the American side, they attempted Parvati South. They were caught in a storm somewhere over there, those ledges, and they had to rappel all night to get back down. And we could see the flashlights in the night. We were really concerned for them. In fact, one of the rappel anchors almost came off as well, so it was very harrowing. That's Ajay, and that's Karen. So they had bivouacked on a tiny ledge for the night. This peak was climbed by this ridge here, and this is the col between Parvati South on the right and the other side. Sorry. This was one rock tower which one of the members, Chinese guy from Bombay, Hu Si Lin, he said, yeah, why don't we try and climb this? I said, are you crazy? But he was crazy. He was mad about rock climbing. So we did a few pitches on this, but we didn't get to the top like a needle. Very good rock, very solid, and great exposure and a fabulous setting. And that's a Hard Rock Cafe for you guys. The peak behind my shoulders there, that's a very fine peak just in front of Advanced Base. The only route which has been done on this is up this. Next was this little peak called Hidden Peak, because you can't see it from Advanced Base, which is down there. Again, not much of altitude, but a lot of deep snow plodding. When you get to the top, you can see right across to the other side, which leads into the Sange Valley. Total contrast to this side. This range catches a lot of moisture from the plains, so it does get a lot of snowfall. And towards the end, with about 2-3 days left, some of us just went up to camp here above base camp. There is this rocky peak 5605 and the higher one, Pyramid Peak. But we got caught in 26 hours of snowfall, so that put paid to our plans. That's Franklin, Karen, Ajay, and Sealand is not visible here. So when the snow cleared, we kind of just fooled around a bit. And again from here we could see the pin Parvati, which is right across. That's a notch. Late September, early October, retreat down the Parvati Valley, you come across this, they call it the Kulu Eiger. Only climbed once by a Scottish team, Jim Lowther. I think they went up from here somewhere. It's only about 18,000 feet, but 18,000 feet can give you a great climb. Just like Ali Ratni Tiba is also around the same altitude, and not many people go there. Right, now I come to the other big, relatively large expedition I was part of, thanks to Commander, he was Lieutenant Commander then, Satyabrata Dham. Some of you might have heard of him. This is Divesh Muni. So in that year, the IMF was, they had a lot of funds available apparently. So they said, here's 2.5 lakhs, but you have to try and climb an unclimbed peak. So Satya and Divesh jumped at the idea, And they said, oh, Burfudhura in the Kalabalan in eastern Kumaon is unclimbed. There had been one attempt way back by an IIT team led by Limay from the north side, but they hadn't got very far. So we said, okay, let's have a look here. So that's Burfudhura. That's the north side, and this is the south side. The approach is one of the most beautiful I have done in the as far as base camp approaches are concerned. Rohit Bhatt, who is here, he's been on this route, I believe, up to Ralam village, and he crossed the Ralam pass into what's that valley, Rohit, on the other side? Sipu. Yeah, the village called Sipu. But what? Lasaryanti, and then into the Dharmaganga, right? Yeah. So beautiful area. And then when the meadows open up, you out of the Ralam Gorge, so to speak, it's all wide views. Because some of the residents were not too happy with our arrival. Ralam village is a transient village in the sense these Bhutia people who live there. It's only a summer village, a summer hamlet. It's only a couple of houses there. And lovely jewelry. As you can see, the women work while the guys smoke. Pretty neat arrangement there. So it was a long way to advanced base camp, which was at the foot of this very beautiful peak called Shirigwe. It has had only 2 ascents. The first one by Harish Kapadia's team way back in I think 79, I'm not too sure. And recently again, Harish only told me, yeah, there has been another ascent. So we had ABC here. Beautiful mountain town right above the moraine. So now the challenge was, we had to do some recce on this. We ended up, we said, okay, let's, the idea is to get up here first and then see if we can get up onto these ridges, because that's a summit. So we went up initially into this gully here. And then when this ice fall showed up, we had to climb this ridge and rappel down into this. And then we realized, why don't we come straight here to the bottom and then go up this? So that's where we sighted our Camp 1 on that call. That's Satya Dham there. And the background is that minor peak which you saw, we called it Burfu South, because it's directly south of Burfu Main. So the idea was, we said, let's climb this Burfu South and have a look at the south face of Burfudhura, which would be here. So from our camp, we came up through this. So it was a full traverse and descended this, all in a good day's work, not too hard again. That's a Kalabalan, the glacier there. And where it curves away, it joins the Yangchar glacier. And there's another glacier which comes from the base of Suitilla. Again, an easy snow climb. And from there we got a head-on view of Burfudhura. So that is the summit. So our plan, we took this gully up here. So we had to descend from this camp into a big snowfield and go up this, get onto the, if you can see a fine line here, there's a ridge there, go behind this rock, and then you see this little snow thing there, get up there. We thought we'll pitch a camp there and then from there go for the summit. This is a very distinctive feature we call the shark's fin. It really looks like a shark's fin. And you can just see the summit humps in the distance horizontally. That's Divesh coming in. So the day we actually occupied that camp turned out to be the worst day, very stormy. So these two gentlemen, that's Narendra Chauhan and that's Satya, they decided to sleep in the snow cave. They also, it was a kitchen, so they made chai for us. And the three of us slept in this tent which collapsed in the night. So it snowed relentlessly throughout the night. We were actually anchored to the slope. Each of our harnesses we anchored separately in case the tent blew off and we were just left hanging. Anyway, the night passed and the next morning three of us decided, no, this is too much, nothing's going to happen. So we went down and that's Narendra preparing to go down. Whereas Divesh and Dam made of sterner stuff. They said, no, we'll stick it out another night here and let's see if the weather improves. As it happened, it didn't. So they also had to, after another night, really ferocious snowfall storms, they came down as well. And this was down at the lower camp. This is what we got. This particular trip, I was very surprised at the quality of the tents we had. These are all from IMF. This is actually only a 3-season trekking tent. And absolutely not adequate for this kind of weather, mountain weather. So I thought the IMF would have better stuff. Or if they had, we didn't get it. But it makes for, every storm gives you fabulous pictures after the storm is over. So we had to spend a day just drying out after that. And this is the mountain paparazzi. Everyone had a camera and everybody was pointing everywhere. And it was lovely to be lying out in the sun. These are some very dramatic peaks of the Kumaon. That's Chaudhara there. That is Rajramba. So these are the big peaks here. Very big, very, very beautiful. So while we were lazing around in the sun that night, I suggested to Satya and Divesh. Satya was technically the leader. I said, hey, forget about setting up that camp 2 again. We got very few days left. Let's try to make a push for it right from here, which was a tall order for sure. But the weather was clearing up. We said, yeah, let's give it a shot. So that's what we did the next day. Our camp is down there. You see those little dots? So we've come up, we are up here so high. Again, you can see that is Rajramba. Now what happened was after about 100 or 200 meters, I and Satya were on one rope, Divesh and Narendra were ahead. Satya started throwing up really badly, he was throwing up his insides, vomiting everything out. So he said, yeah, I'm going to go back to the camp. I said, okay. So since we had fixed rope up to a certain point, I just plodded on. But I was no match for these two. And so they waited for me somewhere there. And they said, no, this Aloke is taking too long. So they pushed on, trying to get as close to the summit as possible. Because see, we just had this one window. So while I was following, I took this picture of them. And then I got up onto the ridge. I had a rope with me. And there was a last snow stake there. And there was a very corniced, about 10-foot section with an extremely steep drop onto this is the Burfu Nala side. Sorry. And I couldn't take that chance because even if I had attached my rope, if I fell down, there was a 5,000-foot drop. I would be, even on a short rope, I don't think I would have been able to climb back up, especially if you're injured. So I said, no, I've got a 7-year-old son in Mumbai, I've got a wife. I said, some risks are not worth taking. So I just sat there. I sat for about an hour or two. And this is one of the best grandstand views I've ever got of Nanda Devi East, which they call Sunanda Devi now, and the Hardiol group out there. Great views. And then I started plodding back, and these two also, they missed the summit by about 100 vertical meters and about 200 horizontal meters, because again time was running out. Some of the views I took. So, yeah, there was a team from Bombay which has climbed Suli Top, and then they were stuck on this col for about, I think, a week or 10 days. I remember seeing the slide presentation back in at the Himalayan Club in Mumbai. It was awful. It was like snow up to 10 feet around them, tents buried, and they still kind of held out. Yeah, so here you can get a view of these lovely peaks. Suitilla, which has now been climbed. At that time it was still unclimbed in 1999. Far in the distance, Panchtuli 2, again almost 7,000 meters. Chaudhara has been climbed once or twice, not too many times. Massive peak with this huge glaciers on top, and Rajaramba. Going back to Monish, Devjani's 1992 Indo-British trip, some of the Brits there did a traverse, right, Monish? Yeah, of, was it Rajaramba? Rajaramba and something else in between, right? Yeah, they were up there for about either 5, 6 or 10 days, I don't know. They were going from peak to peak, ridges were long, but again, cutting edge. These guys are world-class climbers. Takes a lot to get there. So this was the year I was about to leave India for Canada. So, so one last chance I went to have a look here to the Bagini glacier. There was no plans to climb really, so this was more like let's have a look. Again with me was the Khadalias, Kumkum Khadalia and Jayant Khadalia, and their 11-year-old son, who by then had done 11 trips to the Himalaya, because every year they would drag him up. So the little boy, he didn't want to leave his dad. So they stayed at base camp. Kumkum and I went up a little ahead of that, bivouacked here, and we were trying to climb something called Snow Dome, which again was a very long haul from here. We went up this from here and then tried to get up here. But the great thing about this attempt was the views looking back. There's Changabang, the north face. You know, the famous Changabang, you all know about it. That's one branch of the Bagini Glacier, and the other branch goes off to the left towards Tirshuli West. At that time it was still unclimbed. It has been climbed now. It was the last 7,000 meter peak in this part of the Garhwal, which was still unclimbed. And Hardeol, of course. So I carried a 28-300mm lens on my Nikon, so I could get these pictures. So the North Face climb, which Mick Fowler and company did some years ago, they went straight up this. Whereas the other climb, the Shining Mountain book by Peter Boardman, the West Ridge of Changabang, which was a breakthrough climb, that was up this on the other side. And that route, by the way, has just been repeated almost 40 years later. It took 40 years for a big team from, I think, New Zealand, Australia, to repeat that climb, which just two guys had done, Dick Renshaw and Peter Boardman, back in 1976. So you can see how trends are. Kalank, again, another fierce mountain there. I don't know why they call it Kalank, because Kalank is like a blot, right? I don't think it's a blot. It's such a great mountain. Some Japanese climbers have done a tremendous route up this whole face. They went just across above this, and then they found their way up. So our little trip was up here, and that was about as far as we got before we decided that's a bridge too far. So the next month I was in Ladakh. This is the Kongmarula, and I said, yeah, let's find an easy peak. So that is Kanyese. That's supposed to be a trekking peak. That's a lower peak by 300 meters. And that's a main peak. Not climbed very often, and only recently this long 2-kilometer ridge has been traversed. A trekking member in the first Indian civilian expedition to Kanchenjunga, but he went up to 26,000 feet. And he's rock climbing at 75. If you're in the rock climbing circle, you've heard of him, Franco. This picture I took on the way back. There was a storm, then we climbed this. This is our route, seen from the pass. A lot of plodding because again it was a storm and we were climbing post-storm. That's Franco and that's Ravi. These are all the peaks of the Karakoram. I'm not sure what peaks they are, but it could be even in Pakistan. At this point, Ravi felt sick. He was getting some kind of, vomiting, so he stayed back. And Franco and I continued. And at this point, you can see Franco there's a dot there. So he said, "Look, I can't go any further, I'm tired." And I was just about 40 meters below the summit and about 100 meters horizontal. I said, "I'm not going to let this one go." I said, "This is my last chance for a Himalayan summit." So it took me 1 hour to cover that distance. 1 hour plodding. It was bad. But I got to the summit and Franco took this picture of me getting there. Again, Cornist a bit to the left. And from here you could see the main peak, which is climbed from here. And this is the connecting ridge, which, like I said earlier, has been traversed only recently, I think 2 years ago. A team from Bengal. There's lots of other peaks here. There are Kanyadze 2, 3, or 3, 4, 5. Some ascents have been made here, but there's lots of material. So that was my goodbye to the Himalayas. I went off to Canada. Did a bit of climbing in the Bugaboos. Very famous area that's called the Snowpatch Spire. And still try and continue a little, here and there. Nothing serious. These are all top rope ice climbs or dry tooling. You use your ice tools to climb rock. I don't know why you would do that, but it's good fun. So this is little information. All the expeditions that I've spoken to, all the details are in this blog spot. If you want the absolute details, they are there. I've written about them. And I land again with Kanchenjunga, which inspired me first. This is from Goichila in Sikkim. I was there in 2019. And this is a quote from a poet that I read in that Scottish book. And I think it's a very nice one. It says, "Whatever you can do or dream you can, begin it, because boldness has genius, power, and magic in it." Thank you very much.
Q&A time?
Pardon? No. Done.
Yeah, Q&A.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So we'll have a quick Q&A. Anybody having any questions?
Yeah?
Maybe you do.
Yeah, give him the mic. Yeah, go ahead.
Thank you for all these things. It's really exciting and wonderful. Just wanted to know how you made the plans before you get into those climbs. So, like, in those days, you were not having any Google Maps or anything, right?
Yeah, most of these plans were like you were reading some article about,
Journal.
I was a great fan of the Himalayan Journal. I still have those paper volumes with me. So you just flip through and you find something, this is something maybe which I'd like to go to because of the area of the, the kind of peak which you might be able to do I mean, obviously, I can't go and climb peaks like, all these hot shots. So anything which suited me, do some research, and then generally I would find like-minded people. He's saying, hey, how about going there? Are you free this this summer or this month? And it just needs that commitment. Most of the time we just went on sketch maps because, like I said earlier, contour maps, the 1:50,000 survey of India, is excellent, but try getting hold of them if you're not from the army. There's only once for the Chango thing in '98, we went to Reconquio, we spoke to the commandant there, ITBP, and we showed him all our letters, and he said, sir, can we please look at the map? We won't, he said, okay, I'll allow you to look, no pictures. So Arun Samant, who did the cartography for the Himalayan Journal for many years, he actually wrote down all the peaks in the Chango. So those altitudes are correct. They're not estimates, they're surveyed heights. And because I was cross-checking with Google Earth is very misleading sometimes. So nothing like a surveyed map, yeah. Anything else? Yeah, go ahead. Kala?
Yeah, this is a layperson question.
No problem.
You mentioned more than once that you decided to step back because time was running out.
Yeah.
What does that mean? You set a time or what was?
Yeah, in mountaineering circles, generally you have a turnaround time. And you base that on your assessment of the conditions, your fitness, the weather, etc. And a lot of accidents or mishaps happen because that turnaround time you don't stick to it because people get what is known as summit fever. Yaar, yahi pe hai, it's so close that they give it their all. But you must keep in mind that on the return you're exhausted, both physically and mentally, which is even more important. Your level of awareness is reduced, and you're putting yourself into a frame of mind and body which can endanger both you and your teammates. The very famous 1996 disaster on Everest. Everest was open to commercial climbing just before that, so all these have these hordes of climbers being led up by very good guides. But the turnaround time on that trip where six people died was normally from the South Pole they start at midnight, and the Sherpas and the guides set a turnaround time. It takes almost 12 hours to reach the summit. It's a very long climb, 3,000 feet at that altitude. It's the death zone. And they knew there was a storm coming that afternoon. The forecast I told them, because nowadays you have all this, satellite forecasting, people are sitting with laptops on summits, everything. But they ignored that. For some reason that was not adhered to, because some climbers said, nahi, abhi to summit karna hai. Some of those American companies were charging over 50,000 US dollars per client. That time, 96. The cream of like Mountain Madness and what's the other one by Brian Hall, I forget. But that's the kind of thing you're looking at. So even if you're not climbing commercially, it does help to, like I said, in our time we had absolutely no backup. So you couldn't call a helicopter rescue, you couldn't call 911, satellite phones were not invented there, I don't know, they were not there. And even when they came, even till today, you can't have a satellite phone in the mountains without permission from the Ministry of Defense. And try getting that. So these are all the reasons. It's best to keep within your limit. I mean, even then things can go wrong, I'm not saying. But that's the whole thing about the turnaround time, and it's too late. And as they say, it's better to, fight and run away and live to fight another day. There's a very famous mountaineer called Doug Scott, one of the leading climbers of the 70s and 80s. He said that the mountains will always be there. Make sure that you are there too. Yeah, it's simple. I think human life, your life is not worth giving up for anything. Any mountain, however beautiful it might appear. So, yeah, they give you a lot of thrills, joy, but yes. Yeah, go ahead. You want the mic? Okay. Sure, go ahead. Uh-huh.
How would you, plan for that, for the gear that you're going to leave behind and all that?
Yeah, well, most of the rappel anchors would be slings, which we could sacrifice because slings were relatively cheap, and even when those big chalk stones came in, yeah, you felt bad. Yeah, I've spent hundreds of rupees on this. Can't leave it. And like for example, on Granite Peak, we left about on that whole route only about 8 pitons. So I know it's some people in these days of ethical climbing don't use pitons, but it's like don't use bolts for sport climbing, right? So there is that debate, but there are certain areas where I think you have to balance the risk versus thing, yeah. And so mostly it was slings. So there would be, and the good thing about slings is over a period of time, it's fabric, so it's eco-friendly. It's not going to stay there for 300 years. Yeah.
Share about the progression from when you started, about the food, like you said, Maggie, and then
Yeah.
towards your last expedition, what would it evolve into during those times?
Well, a little bit of these dried, lightweight food were coming into the market, so we tapped into that, but not much because right up to 2000 or even a bit later, I didn't see much on the market that was really lightweight. So that is a real big drawback, especially if you want to travel or climb light and high, because if you're already carrying a rucksack weighing 15 kilos of gear or 20 with your down bag, etc., etc., how much can you devote for food? But that food is still important. And then fuel, gas canisters also, even that small one, it does weigh. So it's a lot of balancing out. What we did in many times was we made the food lower down, froze it, and just took it up, heated it, threw in some snow or something, and you can't have a gourmet meal for sure. And even the recent, all these fancy packs you get, ready to eat, dehydrated, most of them I just hate the taste. I've tried them all, but each packet costs abroad about $12 or something, 12 US. That's a lot of money for one meal, and which you almost feel like throwing up. Interesting question. My friend Ajay Tambe, he tried once. He said, Alok, I think we should have baby food. I said, why? He said, babies, everything is in that meal. So he actually carried Farex on that 1993 trip. And we all had, because it's 2 o'clock in the morning, you're waking up, you need to kind of put in some food. And what do you eat? Other than having tea, nothing goes down. So he was religiously wolfing down Farex, but it was atrocious. Yeah, so when you're climbing on a non-commercial thing, like I just mentioned, these are the other things you have to attend to. There's much more to climbing than just climbing. It's the logistics, it's your equipment, it's your route finding. There's so many, and this whole package, this whole activity. That's what appeals to me, and because it just absorbs your whole being. For those few weeks or months, or even in the prep stage, that's all you think about. And you're discussing it with friends, you're looking up this and that and the other. Yeah, it's a passion, it's an obsession. But it's fun. At the end of the day, I'd rather be doing that than, having a cocktail in a bar or something. Yes?
Yeah, hi. Look, I have two questions. One is personal and one is like general. Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah, over there. Oh, sure.
There's camera. I'm just hiding
Okay,
behind.
okay.
Okay, so the first question is, which unexplored regions of, in the region, in the Indian Himalaya,
Yeah.
still excites you? Or, like, is there any unfinished business which you feel like, okay, here hai gaya? That is one first question.
Yeah.
And the second question is, why do you think nowadays there are only few climbers, or maybe exploratory trekkers still feel like, there is less amount of first ascents and more of commercial thing going on right now from your point?
I don't know. I think, see, the commercial operators, it's like going on a commercial trek. You know, I've done a commercial trek in Sikkim, and that was the Goichala. I was surprised at how deluxe it can be. You know, the guys reach that campsite before you, they set up the tents, and it was, I remember the first day on the trek, it was raining cats and dogs. And this guy comes down from Shoka, and we are just plodding up the last few 100 meters in pouring rain, and you know, everything is wet. And we're coming up with headlamps, and he comes down with a steaming kettle of tea halfway down. And then when we get there, I thought, oh, the tent's gonna be wet. But the tents they have in Sikkim, my God, they are like rubber tents. We were dry inside. We were absolutely dry. And then there's a kitchen tent, there's a table, there's a toilet tent. You don't have to go into the looking for a boulder to hide behind, or a tree or a bush. I guess, you know, and you don't have to worry about the logistics, right? You pay your money, you land up at the trailhead, Asap Chale, and then you have all these mules and khotes carrying everything for you. I suppose that's what appeals.
I would like to add to that comment.
Yeah.
So, this is a demographic change or social change in India, which has happened between 80 after 90.
Yes.
When the thing, everybody is behind, running behind career, what they wanted. I lost 25 years or 30 years not climbing because of this.
Yeah. Okay.
Get into IT industry, that 81, 82,
Yeah.
40 years we lose. As an organization, what we realized in KMA also,
Yeah.
there were not youngsters coming in at all.
Mhm.
There was a dearth of youngsters who will adventure, try, attempt, and other things, because everybody was too busy, 12 hours a day for their survival itself. Very small number of people are coming, okay?
Mm.
And now things are reviving in the past 5-6 years. So I think socially we are not running behind money desperately for survival.
Yeah.
We are just moving up little. At the same time, this operator related thing, because it's popular, more people, more money
Yeah.
is
For
flowing
them,
in.
it's a business. Yeah.
Somebody was asking on a Kalindi Col trek, will we have Western toilet on the way?
Okay.
So you can imagine that kind of a thing.
Okay. Coming back to Rohit's question about, I would think if I'd stayed on and I was younger, there's still a lot of valleys which people have bypassed. You can just go into that, especially among the lower hills, you know, like again I said, there are peaks just 5,500 meters up to 6,000. They're so challenging, and they've been untouched because it needs a lot of technical expertise. And if you work at it, if you have the time and the inclination and the means. But coming back to your question, I also find, at least from what I see in social media, that there are a lot of young Indians in the late 20s, 30s who are opting out of this rat race. And IT itself is giving them a big boost, because you know they have this ability to work remotely, or to suddenly make big time money somewhere by working for a big multinational and then quit for some time. So these are the guys who can actually, and they can afford the gear. Let's face it. Yeah, and so yeah, they're working. Yeah, Manali is full of people. You go online and everybody is working out of Manali. They're renting a cottage and connected with the world. But it's in the training stage that we need to, if you look at European climbers and all these, they spend a lot of time on the mountains. They cut their teeth on those Alps, which are again not very high, but technically, I don't think many of us will be able to do, let's say, the north face of the Eiger, right? Or on our own, and people are soloing it. So that kind of commitment it's also a cultural thing, I guess, cultural, and it depends on a lot of factors. Like India has been, to start with, how much disposable income was there in your time and mine, right? Like I said, my dad wasn't willing to give me 350 rupees for that HMI course. And whereas in the West, it was a different ballgame. People were working from the age of 15, the high school, they're working in McDonald's, and they had that social security as well. If you look at all these big climbers, they said, no, climbing is all I want to do. They couldn't care less if they were working in some, were wiping windows, washing windows, but they wanted 3 months off in the mountains. And when they became successful, everybody, the sponsors ran after them. And, you see Chris Bonington's Why I Chose to Climb, you read his autobiography. Similar pathways, but that's not happening in India yet. But it might happen that the guys getting sponsored, and so they can pursue it full time. But I don't know. But at the same time, you can still climb for fun. Okay, you don't want to break any records. It's something that you enjoy. Do it, and you can do it in a very nice way. You can do it. You can find stuff all around you, close to you. My advice is don't get swayed by people. Oh, I've done the 7 summits. I'm going to Antarctica next month. I'm climbing the highest peaks on all the continents. It's simple nowadays to do that. You just pay the money and you're there. Of course, you have to have the time and the fitness, but it's not something that appeals to me, honestly. Like I think Divesh said recently, he said he doesn't want to climb Everest. I'm sure he can, but it's just because of the whole circus surrounding it today. I mean, have you ever done a Everest trek to base camp? I did it in 2018. It's insane. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
So, short aggressive question.
Yeah.
This group from IIT Bombay that you mentioned, what's the name?
Vasant Limai was the leader. This was back in, I think, early 80s. If you look up the old Himalayan journals, you'll find a mention. They had gone up Kalabalan Glacier and they attempted Burfudura from the north. They didn't get very far. Yeah. But it's a very short, it's like in one of those notes. It's not a full-fledged article. Yeah. Yeah? Yeah, go ahead. Bottom there's a switch, I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I thoroughly enjoyed your journey,
Thank
sir.
you. Thank
Thanks
you,
a
ma'am.
lot for this wonderful enlightening session. My question is very basic.
Yeah.
When you started, you might have some weaknesses and then your own fears. So eventually, how did you overcome and how did you make your nerves of steel? How did you?
I don't have nerves of steel. I'm a scary cat.
Because I'm still a trekker and trying to graduate to mountaineering, but
Yeah.
I'm scared some of the times. It's like, but I don't give up. That's the
That's good.
thing. But can you advise us for amateurs?
I don't know. I would say get the basics done. Like I said, okay, if you want to do some rock climbing, there are so many avenues open here. I think the thing is you have to get familiar with rope work, with the belay systems, with stuff like that. How to protect yourself, how to protect others, and also then you have to develop your own skill so that you know how far you can go without putting yourself in harm's way. Like I'll tell you very simply, in Delhi I had a fall in Hoj with this Mohit Oberoi. He had taken me out, let's go climbing. I said, okay. And these camming devices which are called friends, I was not very familiar with them. So I was leading the pitch right from the ground up. And I saw this crack, I put it in, I clipped the rope up to it. Now, the theory is, he's belaying me, right? So the rope is going up from my waist thing through the carabiner, which is gone into that crack via the friend. And if I fall, he kind of stops my fall because he's got a jamming device with him. But there is also a thing called, like, sometimes in these cracks, the friends, the way they were designed, if you didn't put it properly, if there was even a slight play, they would walk into the crack or out of the crack. So these camming devices would jam into something like this. So here it is tight. Then the crack widens, let's say, or widens this way. For some reason, if that thing is pulled this way and then suddenly the cam has no grip on the sides, so it comes off. So these things happen, but again, like I said, it's just practice, get very familiar with that. You should be able to do it blindfold, like knots. Knots are very important. Rappelling in rock climbing has led to a lot of deaths, and even in the mountains. And even very experienced people, sometimes they have not put that last knot at the end. So as it's running through your device, it should jam. I suppose you're rappelling in the dark and you're already tired and you haven't done that. You'll just slip out of the rope and drop like a fly. I mean, there are horrendous accidents have happened like that to some of the best climbers. So, but getting over your fear, it starts slowly. I mean, there's no. Have faith in yourself. You can do more than what you're doing. None of us are born without fear. Though I think maybe Alex Honnold, the guy who climbed solo, they tried to test his brain to see that he's got something missing in his makeup, because he climbed these extreme routes. He's done it all solo. You've seen it on social media, right? I don't know. That's it. Okay. Thank you very much for all your questions. It was fun answering them. I hope I have answered them to some extent. But thank you once again, and you have a good evening.
Thank you so much, Aloke.
Yeah, okay.
We come to the last section, vote of thanks. So, we saw a lot of good pictures today, right? It's a great collection of pictures, some incredible work behind it. So, kudos to you, Aloke. Great work, great work. One thing that I've observed in this session was we initially planned initial warm up, which I did, then 30 minutes of Aloke speaks, 10 minutes of break, then another 30 minutes of part 2. But then the whole thing was so engaging.
Sorry.
We spent more time than what we thought. So that's the quality of the work that Aloke presented today, and the incredible journey that he went through, his stories and insights. So it was truly inspiring, and really thankful. And I personally felt that it was so engaging for me. It was so calming as well. So thank you so much, Aloke, for coming here and talking about it. And continuing on that note, a heartfelt thanks to as well to the Himalayan Club Central Leadership, leaders of the Bangalore chapter, our secretary, all the volunteers and organizing team members who work behind the scene to make this event happen. Manish, Rohit, Sudeep, and of course led by our secretary, Kamlesh Venugopal. We had Senin and Neil doing the videography recording, and this event will be eventually uploaded in YouTube. The channel name is the Himalayan Club, so watch out for it. Okay, and one other thing that I observed that I don't see it so often, even starting at the right time to be accomplished. So thanks for everybody coming on time or before time, and we were able to start the whole event on dot at 6 p.m., which was incredible, and then it actually going till 8:30, the 2.5 hours. It's a long time. And having seen so many people engaged, also happy to see the presentation and things like that. So a big thank you to each one of you for joining us in this evening and bringing such wonderful energy to the event. Thank you so much. Good round of applause to everyone. Thank you so much. Yeah, and we hope to see you again at our upcoming sessions as we continue to celebrate the spirit of mountains and adventures together. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you so much for coming again. Bye. Have a good night.